Panharmonicon presents a podcast. Me. Are you? Do I? Okay. Oh, thank you. Damon, are you ready for another episode of Panharmonicon Studios presents a podcast?
Oh, you want to go continue? I thought you were going to go like, a podcast.
A podcast.
There we go.
Oh, I was actually kind of hoping that you would chime in,
Oh,
like come in and be like, a podcast.
Well, I can't go high.
You can't. You can't.
Like that. A podcast. Oh. That's about it. I need to be like the ooh.
Well, okay, so another episode of Panharmonicon Studios presents
a podcast.
That was a long intro, guys, but I appreciate you sticking around. Welcome to another episode. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, man. How have you been?
I've been great. Been watching a lot of movies.
You've been watching a lot of movies.
And it's been a great time. It's been a lot of fun getting back into the theater, making that more of a regular thing, and seeing movies. Wow, that was a terrible voice crack. I think I'm still 12. But seeing movies that of all different styles, you know. We will have an episode for this, I promise you guys. But EP7, Death of a Unicorn, Sinners, if you guys haven't listened to that episode yet, that one is already out. But today, we're going to tackle a little fun one that just recently came out. It's making waves. People are saying that Marvel is back. Thunderbolts.
Yeah, people keep saying Marvel's back.
How do you feel about that?
I don't like it, honestly.
You don't like people saying that?
I don't, mostly just because the next movie could be the one that makes people go, oh, no. Or
right.
I've already seen how people are treating, like, Ironheart, for example. And it's, like, one, not even out. And two, it's already like, no, we're back to all the BS. Disney just not knowing what to do with the Marvel license. And it's like, you just were sitting there shouting to the heavens how Marvel's back. Mm-hmm. And then you did that back when No Way Home was like, oh, Marvel's back. Shang-Chi and Black Widow, so horrible. And then it comes out, and the next thing you know, you're right back to, like, either, I'm not going to say either stop watching the movies or don't, but I will just say, like, stop eternalizing your hype in a way that, like, makes every single thing that comes out that doesn't hit the level you want it to be bad.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
There's a scale for a reason. It's not like, oh, if it's got to be 100% on Rotten Tomatoes or it's 0. Like, you either, like, you can like a movie, and I'm not saying like every movie has to knock it out the park, because they won't do that. There probably has never been a year, or even like a month in which every single one of the movies that came out that month were just nothing but like stone cold killers.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
So either just accept that movies come and go, and you like the ones you do, and you don't like the ones you don't, or just shut up. Ultimately, I think it's the shut up part that I want the most. But the movie that we are going to be talking about today, which I'm sure you've seen the title of this by now, is Thunderbolts.
Thunderbolts.
Which, with an asterisk. I'll spoil my review of it. I liked it. I'm not gonna shout to the heavens that Marvel's back, but it was a very fun movie, and I enjoyed watching it. But I also enjoy watching all the other Marvel movies.
Yeah, about what you're saying, just sort of the oscillating back and forth between Marvel's back to their bullshit, Marvel is back at the top of their game, but in any of this commentary, it's like we forget that Marvel didn't have misses before. Are we pretending like from 2008 to Endgame that there were no missteps?
Oh no,
whatsoever.
They talk about them all the time.
Yeah,
but they'll be the first to tell you that like they didn't like Captain Marvel, or they didn't like Captain America, the first Avenger, or Thor Dark World,
or the first Thor. Yeah,
they'll tell you that all the time. But the difference is that once Endgame happened, that was supposed to be like it. At that point, every other one was supposed to be just Endgame. Right. That can't ever happen. Just like a stock can't infinitely go up in like profit.
Yeah.
No movie series can continue to be excellent every single time after like a certain point.
Especially at that scale, dude. I mean, you're talking about 12 years of building up, and you expect that kind of density in every subsequent movie after Endgame is just not realistic.
And it's like, even if they magically could, you would grow tired of it.
Absolutely.
Because you would get desensitized to it, and all of a sudden it would become a new low that you were looking to go up.
Dude, 100%. 100%. It's funny you say that because total different topic, but in conversations about addiction, I mean, that's a lot of what addicts are looking for, right? They're looking to replicate that first time, the first time they reach that level, that high. And oftentimes you can't do that unless you consume copious amounts of it, or you maybe transition to something harder. Like, it's very hard to try to like replicate that, and it feels like Endgame was that peak, which in itself, if I'm being real, don't get me wrong, I love Endgame, but it's not flawless. Like, it's
I mean, honestly, even when I was watching it the first time, there were parts where I was like, okay, well, we could probably get a little bit quicker into the part that I want to watch. Which, honestly, in bringing it back to Thunderbolts, I didn't feel that in Thunderbolts. It's probably because it's a shorter movie. But I didn't get those moments where I was just like, oh, man, y'all need to speed this up, buddies, because I need to get to the parts I want to watch.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what I wanted to watch in this movie, so that may have been also a part of it, but it was really just it's Marvel. And Marvel has a formula that they figured out a very long time ago. Mm-hmm. And I don't expect it to change. No one probably should, because they figured out a way to print money, and they're just gonna continue printing money.
Absolutely.
So either don't go to the movies and then force them to change, or get off your Twitter fingers. But only one of them gonna make a change. It ain't the one that you want to do.
Do you feel that Thunderbolts was a completely obedient to their formula? And also, sorry, with that, do you want to cover a little bit of like sort of your interpretation of what their formula is?
If I were to say what the problem with like the Marvel formula is, it moves movie by movie. Early on, it very much was, because they were all origin stories. It was the beginning of the hero, the rival or enemy or whatever that's eventually going to match the power set of the hero. All your little quips and jokes, and eventually your little what I would say would be like callbacks to other things, shout outs to comic nerds, and then big battle at the end, roll credits, teaser for something in the future. Then Avengers happened, and it set a tone for ensembles, which became individuals that we know about because they've been in all these other projects, come together. They're not the best of friends at first. An event forces them to have to start collaborating with one another, that then forms a bond. And they go from passively wanting to kill each other at the beginning to being like bosom buddies. At the end, roll credits. Sometimes you stop credits early to to tease something or make a joke. Roll some more credits at the end. You tease something or make a joke, and then there became like the bigger movies like Civil War, Infinity, and Endgame, where it was just like a story constantly kind of being told throughout, where everybody's established at this point. There doesn't need to be any like trying to get you up to speed because you are in it. Boom, 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 battle, boom, 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 story, boom, 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 big battle. And I don't think Thunderbolts strays far away from it. In fact, it in effect is just like a rehash of the first Avengers movie, considering what it ends up calling it. Apparently, it's being marketed as New Avengers now. So
that's why you added the. I forgot that there's an asterisk there for it. So essentially, what you're saying is that it's kind of like how No Way Home, no one wanted to. You didn't produce marketing, or you didn't market anything that says, "Hey, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield reprise their Spider-Man roles in this." But once the movie comes out, now we can just throw out all of the marketing material that shows that these people are part of the movie, because now the cat's out of the bag. So you think that the whole Thunderbolts was just
it's like if you've ever played
Trojan horse.
Destiny, the video game, where what'll happen is like there'll be this like story content added. It'll be in an expansion, and then the at the end of the story, there's a big there's a raid, and the raid always has a race to like the first, like whoever clears the raid first. Can take like a few hours, may take like 2 days. But once they do it, sometimes there will be another story beat that the world's first team gets to see first. And then if you as a normal player come in and you just like log in after they beat it, you'll see what they saw. And all of a sudden there'll be like changes in the world. And that is what happened at the end of Thunderbolts. If you watched it, they like weekend it came out, you got to see like the arc. And then if you happen to be in like London or something, or New York afterwards, and you look up and you see a big billboard, it now has a big tear across the Thunderbolts, revealing the name, the New Avengers.
So, has a movie ever done that before?
No, I don't think so.
That is such an interesting thing. I don't know. I guess I don't know the complete ins and outs of how the marketing side of this business works, or really every single facet, right? But like, it just seems like it could have a negative impact if you're like, hey, I'm going to market this movie, all the trailers, everyone knows this is the Thunderbolts, but once it comes out after a couple weeks.
Now, I will say that they had the asterisks there the entire time, from the very beginning.
That's
It
true, but
always
I
was
had no
Thunderbolts
idea
with the
why.
asterisks.
I was just like, okay, I guess just accepted it, but.
And I think they wanted you to question it, because usually whenever you see like something advertising, the asterisk is there. There's usually something at the bottom of it telling you what the asterisk means. So you knew it meant that there was a but there, but you just didn't know until you watched the movie. Getting rid of that for anybody who hasn't seen the movie yet, I don't really know if it hurts, because if you aren't a normal comic book reader, you probably have no clue who the Thunderbolts are. Like, for instance, none of the Thunderbolts in the movie, the Thunderbolts are like real, like Thunderbolts, right? They actually have changed that since, but
Leading into the movie, they made some changes to the comic roster. Is that what you're saying?
Technically, in the comic books right now, there are no Thunderbolts, because Doctor Doom kind of hand-waved them away. But
Hand-waved them away?
Well, right now he's the Sorcerer Supreme. He's very powerful. He didn't kill anybody, but he just kind of said, and he's the comic book story right now is One World Under Doom. He used the powers of the Sorcerer Supreme, and along with diplomacy, to have all the world's powers give their power onto him. So now he's like the one ruler. And as such, he wanted the Thunderbolts to become his police force, but they decided not to. So he has claimed them or made them fugitives. So technically, there aren't Thunderbolts, but in the story, the Thunderbolts are Bucky, Black Widow, Contessa LaFontaine, and I think technically Songbird. Obviously, I would say because of how Marvel does their marketing, putting Bucky as the lead of the Thunderbolts was done for a reason. But in the MCU aspect, you really didn't know he was going to be in the Thunderbolts until I think like maybe the first trailer came out. But no one knows about the Thunderbolts, right? Like no one who doesn't read comic books knows. Like, oh man, the Thunderbolts, that was the team that Baron Zemo created. So marketing them as the new Avengers and trying to remarket this movie as an Avengers movie, I think is kind of wishy-washy, because it's definitely not an Avengers movie. Mm-hmm. But
until like the last 10 minutes,
yeah,
right. Like
most of it, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, because I did like it, but so much of it could have just been a Disney Plus series.
Think so? Oh, I guess when you think about it, like Black Widow released in theaters? Because I know it came out around the time. Okay,
it was like one of the first. It was one of those like first movies that everyone kind of thought like, oh, is this going to be like released? And Marvel, Disney was like, we'll put it out in theaters.
But I feel like it didn't have. I don't know. It just seemed like the traction on it, like there just
it didn't
wasn't
have a lot of traction
as...
because I mean it was during the pandemic. Nobody really wanted to.
Right, but I guess that's my thing. Is ultimately you have Black Widow, which Black Widow being one of those films that I'm gonna say quickly follows Endgame. There are people that I've spoken with who are, I would say, like pseudo Marvel fans, fall more in like the general category of interest in it, but they're not familiar with Black Widow. Some people totally forgot the movie even came out. So when you talk about Yelena having been introduced in that movie, outside of that, if they didn't see Black Widow and maybe their only other window into it was like Hawkeye, for instance, or something else where she showed up in Disney Plus. But that also would mean that they wouldn't have any visibility or much remembrance of Red Guardian. Yeah, you would have known Bucky because of the other movies. John would have been from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as U.S. agent. Same thing would have gone for Taskmaster. And I'm missing who's the last person?
Ghost.
Yeah, so Ghost from, I mean...
An Ant-Man movie.
An Ant-Man movie, which people typically find. I mean, I
not
agree
even
with
like
movies, but
Ant-Man
like
2 at that.
yeah. So it's so I guess that's. Sorry, what I'm getting at is, do you feel that you feel that way because of the story that it was trying to tell, or because, I mean, it's kind of the first time you have like an ensemble movie where these characters haven't had the presence of your Iron Man or your Captain America, your Thor, your Hulk, in Black Widow and people like that. Because those were not characters introduced in Disney.
Mm-hmm. Black Widow was simultaneously released in theaters and Disney Plus. That's what the
okay.
I remember seeing it in theaters
because
when it came out.
Scarlett Johansson, wasn't that a big deal? Like where Scarlett Johansson got pissed and like sued Disney because
they were originally going to just do it on Disney Plus because I think something that Warner Brothers had put out was maybe a Wonder Woman or something. Was it Wonder Woman
84? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they were going to try to do that same thing. And then, because it was her movie, right? And it was a movie that she had been fighting to do, and they had been really like, sure thing, ScarJo, we'll do it, whatever. I mean, so much so that by the time it came out, you're like, dude, that movie should have come out between Infinity War and Endgame. Well, really in between Civil War and Infinity War. Just like, nah, we'll do that. We'll put that out after all the big movies have come out, where people now have to be like, oh, this ain't Endgame,
right?
So she had that.
So confusing.
And you're like, because so many people are like, oh, she's back, she's alive. And like, no, this actually took place like back. But I mean, the same thing happened with Captain Marvel, where people were like, "When is this Captain Marvel?" Like, if it wasn't for the fact that it beat you over the head just enough with the like concept that it took place in the early '90s, that you'd have been like, "Is this happening in between these two movies?"
Yeah. So I know that a lot of people listening to the podcast to today's episode probably already seen Thunderbolts, but I suppose if you listen to our podcast and you have no intention of seeing the Thunderbolts, really quick, would you like to just give a synopsis of the film, a little quick breakdown of sort of what happens in it?
Before I get into the synopsis, there is just one more thing I want to say, and it is that this is an experiment that Marvel should be happy has paid out for them, because it is, in my opinion, the first true movie that almost needed you to have watched the Disney Plus series that were connected to it in order for you to be like, okay, all of these characters are not alien to me.
Yeah.
Like, if you didn't watch Black Widow or see Captain Falcon and Winter Soldier,
Falcon
Captain
and Winter
America
Soldier.
in the Winter Soldier, or see Hawkeye, or
You mean Falcon and the Winter Soldier or Captain America and the Winter Soldier? Did you have to see? Because
so you remember, if you were asking about the Thunderbolts to New Avengers thing, technically at the very end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it gets renamed into Captain America and the Winter Soldier, because he takes over the mantle of Captain America. It's the final title panel shows Captain America and the Winter Soldier.
Oh, you know what? So I'm totally sorry here. I'm over here getting the fact that Captain America: The Winter Soldier, the 2014 movie, with the fourth Captain America title, Captain America: Brave New World, and I'm just mixing all these titles together. So I see what you're saying. Okay, because they kind of also did a little bit of the rip away. They didn't put a little asterisk there, but Falcon. He's not the Falcon anymore.
He's Captain America.
But
now.
he will pick up somebody who will just become the Falcon. But one more thing before you get into the synopsis is you had made a comment about the structure and the formula that Marvel has been using, going from solo films to the ensemble films, that when you have pre-established characters that you don't really have to retread over their history. But there is something that I did start to notice in this movie with it, that these movies do in the ensemble, is that they casually throw in conversations that sometimes I feel like maybe didn't need to happen, or a response to something, just so you can get a little bit of information that maybe from the director's standpoint or producer standpoint that you might be afraid that your audience didn't catch these details. Because even with Ghost in this movie, there were some instances where she had to just like very quickly summarize, I had to make this suit because I was like...
She 100% had to be that character, because
I guess
her movie had been the most far back one that anybody could have like paid attention to.
Yeah.
Be like,
and she's not shown up, right? Since
Ant-Man 2.
With a power set like that?
Again, it's one of those times where like I think the power set is like what do you do with that power set? And you're just like, I can't like. I'm just glad that for once you brought a character, like it was like, oh, this is the antagonist that is. Now, granted, in that movie, she stops kind of being the antagonist towards the end of it, but you're still like, oh, this is the antagonist that survived, and you did something with this character finally, instead of like, we still don't know what happened to Michael Keaton's Vulture. He's been gone for ages. But okay.
Did he show up in Morbius? Not that I saw that movie.
I think he's in the. I think he's in the. I haven't either, but I do think he shows up in like a
post-credit scene.
Yeah.
Or, okay.
I think he's still in jail. Anyway, so synopsis. This story is a story. It's mostly a story about Yelena Belova, sister of Black Widow. We use sister very sparingly because they're not actually blood related, but she's been working for councilwoman Valentina LaFontaine.
De La Fontaine.
I'm sorry, De La Fontaine. For I don't know the actual time scale because of Marvel's like the MCU's like wimpy-nimbiness of like when things are taking place, but she's been since effectively the end of Black Widow the movie working with Valentina. Valentina has also been using the services of John Walker, as well as, I'm assuming, the Taskmaster, and Ghost. 4 people who all are effectively stand-ins for Avengers characters who will eventually come together after Valentina is having to kind of scrub herself of any thing that she's been doing behind the scenes due to now being investigated by I guess it's like the Senate.
I have a question about that, though, and I apologize for breaking in here, but is the investigation underway for her the result of events from Brave New World? Like, was she...
No, she wasn't a part of any of the events of Brave
At
New
all?
World.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
I kept thinking she was going to show up in the movie. She never shows up in the movie at all.
Really?
No. And I was like, this is the prime opportunity to be using this character that you have and you introduced in... I think she was introduced at the end of Black Widow, but has like a... She didn't really have a prominent part in
was she introduced in Black Widow or Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
She was introduced at the end of Black Widow.
Okay.
She's in that extra... I keep wanting to say extra credit scene. She's in that post-credit scene.
Yeah.
And then she shows up again in Falcon and Winter Soldier for John Walker's... giving him a new shield and stuff. Ultimately, she's been doing some shady stuff. She's been trying to create a superhuman that will, she claims, be under the whim of the United States, but more than likely it's just going to be under the whim of her herself. If you don't know anything about Valentina de la Fontaine, just know that in the comic books, she kind of comes across as like a female Nick Fury. If you know enough about Nick Fury, that's enough to say how she is. But here, she's much more of like a... She's more of like just a female Thunderbolt Ross. And as such, she wants superhumans that were not just spontaneously created or came from laboratories and decided to join the Avengers, but instead were under her control. So she has created something called Project Sentry. Project Sentry is the analogy of the Sentry formula in the comic books. It's looking basically to create somebody with the power of 1,000 exploding suns.
There's a million.
There's a million.
Suns?
Sorry, a million.
Which is
exploding
insane.
Suns.
Right? Like
we can't even fathom
suns.
that power, so I don't understand how you know how much a million exploding
right.
suns is.
I think the power of one exploding sun probably be enough for us to stop right there and say, hey, we probably don't need to go beyond.
Honestly, he probably only has the power of like some Earth moving or something like that. And we're like, I mean, that's got to be a million exploding suns right there. That sounds about right to me. I don't know.
You see him crush that rock with his bare hand?
A million exploding suns. Boom. But so she's trying to get rid of all that evidence all across the world. She's been using these 4 and possibly even more people to try to do the same. Eventually, she needs to get rid of the loose ends, which includes them. So she puts all 4 of them together to kill each other. At this point, they just killed Taskmaster. And I'm like, why did you put her in any of the advertising if you were going to kill her within the first 15 minutes of the movie? But they kill her within the first 15 minutes of the movie. And then after that, they're like, oh, I guess we're sent to kill each other. So, well, sorry about that part. But anyway, we need to now get out of here because Valentina is trying to kill us. Inside of this place that they were all sent to kill each other, they find a person named Bob. They get out of the compound. They end up having to fight their way out. At this point, Bob thinks he's saving everybody by sacrificing himself. Turns out he cannot die, and this is when he notices that his powers manifest. It doesn't seem that it's the first time his powers have manifested, but it is the first time he's noticed they've manifested. And turns out he's bulletproof, or just invincible. I wouldn't say bulletproof, but he is invincible. He shoots up into the sky, finds out he can fly, and manipulate things to a degree. proceeds to pass out and fall back into the ground. Valentina and her people get a hold of him. The others run away. They are picked up by a Red Guardian, aka Yelena Belova's father.
But then guess who comes back?
AKA Russian Captain America. And as they are getting away, Russian Captain America, Blonde Widow, Ghost, and failed Captain America run into the other Russian Captain America, aka Bucky the Winter Soldier, who in the last movie, Captain America 4, was running for councilman. Turns out he was elected. He is on them because he knows, like, he's trying to get information on Valentina. At this point, I don't know if he is doing this on his own or if he has been directed by the Senate to do this, but he is basically trying to get as much information on Valentina as possible to get her thrown into jail.
So now you have Bucky having kidnapped, in a scene that was very, to me, reminiscent of Civil War, I believe, where they had Bucky, I believe it was Captain America and Falcon, and they were in some kind of like mechanic sort of warehouse or whatnot. That kind of reminded me of like how Bucky had them all.
Oh, when they were in that like
stashed.
garage.
Yeah. But from here, so of course Bucky is trying to get information on Valentina, which takes them back here to, I believe, Manhattan. And at this point, of course, Valentina has already transported Sentry back here, and her plan is to just convince this guy, this former junkie, that he is essentially the new and most powerful superhero, which doesn't really take much convincing because shortly after the Thunderbolts do come to an altercation with Sentry, which quickly shows that he actually is the most powerful thing out there, which is pretty cool. With this movie, I know you said that you liked it. I loved it. I loved the topics that they touched upon, especially in the framework like referenced against superheroes. You know, these people with all these special abilities, but all so broken at the same time. For you, was there anything that you felt like kind of held it back from being something that sort of really exceeded your expectations to become something that you loved?
I would say ultimately the movie had very odd pacing. And I think for me that was a big, kind of a big deal because the movie goes from, like, it is ultimately just a movie about Yelena and Robert Reynolds. And as such, the movie never really wants to stray away from, like, showing either one of them. And I think because of that, like, the movie has this, like, it has this, like, this action scene at the beginning, a little bit of, like, story, another action scene. Like, I guess, like, for me, because you were just explaining about the Sentry part, that part felt like it came, like, really suddenly. I was like, oh, they're already about to fight the Sentry. And then, like, then they got to leave because the Sentry, like, was whooping up on them. Mm-hmm. And then, like, very shortly after that, then all of a sudden it's the Void part, and you're just like, okay. But I probably would have liked to have seen more from everybody. Like I said, it is a Yelena and, like, Sentry movie. Then you have John playing, like, third fiddle, and then you barely get anything out of Ghost. In fact, like, they used the it's like maybe it was filmed, like maybe Hannah John came in was filming like another movie or something. I'm not sure because, like, they almost seem to use her, like, ability to go invisible to just get her out of a scene for, like, periods at a time. And whenever she comes back, like, for instance, she's like one of the few people that didn't do the, like, touch Sentry and have, like,
yeah, I did notice that and have the flashback. Yeah. I was wondering what was up with that because I felt kind of weird about it, where I felt like I was actually surprised at how many lines they gave her. I'm not saying it was a lot, but I was surprised, especially after what happened with Taskmaster. Because, and for people who didn't see it, like Dane was talking about, Valentina essentially just sets up this situation hoping that these four, which I really don't really know what the expectation is. It kind of reminds me of a Zemo from Civil War, where what is the hope here? Did you hope that they would just all wipe each other out at the same time? Because what would be
That's the only way it would have to work is that all four magically shot
somehow
at the same time,
and then died at the same time.
Because otherwise, one of them at least would be getting out of there.
Exactly. So during this little double cross or quadruple cross, however you want to define it, it's a pretty cool fight scene because you see Elena enter and then she's accosted by the U.S. agent, which then turns into Ghost appearing and then Taskmaster appearing. But Taskmaster gets taken out so quickly, which is very disappointing because I don't know, Taskmaster is one of those characters from the comic books where you look at it and you think that there's so much potential here for what this person can do. And then after maybe 5 minutes in this fight scene, bullet through the dome, and let's move on to the next thing.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Like, I've read that it was done to make it like there to be a continuing tension throughout the movie, saying like if they could do that to Taskmaster, any of these other ones could do it. Mm-hmm. But it's like not really, because you never see. I mean, you get a glimpse of Taskmaster's face before she ends up dying,
which honestly I'm pretty sure was just CGI imposed.
And it probably was. I don't know. Probably.
I don't know. Like when I was looking at it, I was like, that CG just looked a little sketch to me. It almost just kind of felt like there was somebody else, and because otherwise, why would you need that actress
to reprise a role?
Yeah, especially if she's going to be masked for the entire time, with the exception of that one shot where the mask comes off and then it comes right back on within like a couple seconds.
It's just very like, it was like, obviously you're not going to kill these other people because we see their face all the time. You're giving them like personality. Mm-hmm. They're not about to die. So why, like, don't tell me about attention. Plus, I see them on all the posters. You know who I barely see on the posters? Taskmaster. And I think they needed to acknowledge the fact that if you continue to watch the trailers, at some point you stop seeing Taskmaster. Absolutely. Because she can't be in those scenes. They should have done like that weird thing where they like sometimes like CGI like people in the scenes that aren't in there.
Like they did with Infinity War, right? The scene with the Hulk. And there's that shot, I think, towards the end of one of the Infinity War trailers where you have Captain America, Black Panther, and then Hulk transformed running all towards the camera, right? And it just does not happen. It's funny that you bring that up because, and really just to break away from Thunderbolts for 1 second. So admittedly, I started watching, I've only gotten through like the first 7 minutes of the first episode of Daredevil. I've been very bad about keeping up with a lot of shows lately. But I remember seeing a comment, I forget where it was, but somebody commented saying, man, I know that boy Foggy dies early. Because every time you see him in these Daredevil trailers, it's always at the bar. Mm-hmm. It's almost kind of like that's the only place that you can expect to see him. But you're absolutely right. And that's one of the things that's very, I think, kind of dangerous about trailers. When you're watching it, you, from an audience perspective, come to expect certain things. Like if you're heading towards the end of a movie and there's a certain shot that stood out to you in a trailer, you know maybe how it's going to end up playing out or know what part of the movie, there's this feel that you kind of get for how certain elements of the story are going to be put together.
Yeah, it's the problem with the over information age that we're in. If this were 1996 and let's say like Superman was coming out in 1997, you didn't know Superman was coming out in 1997 until like the beginning of 1997.
Yeah. Oh, like 100%, dude.
Like, you may know that there's a Superman movie coming out. Ain't no trailer touching screen until that next year.
Man, I will never forget.
It'll be that one trailer.
1997. Watching TV and seeing a trailer for Mortal Kombat Annihilation and then seeing that it was coming out in 2 weeks. Dude, I had no idea that a second Mortal Kombat movie was even being made.
Now you'll get a teaser like a year out, and you're supposed to be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then, like, they'll, like, because they want to keep you on the hype train, they now got to feed you, like, baby bottle way, like, a little bit each time. Like, there's the teaser trailer. Here's the teaser for the teaser trailer.
Yeah.
Here's the teaser for the second trailer. Here's the teaser, like, and you're like, by the time you get to it, you're going to show me the whole movie.
Yeah. I do miss the creativity of some of these teasers, though, and sometimes I do wish that it could just be limited to that. I remember, say for instance, 2001, seeing the first teaser trailer for Spider-Man. It was a scene that ultimately I know they had to remove because of the events of 9/11 that happened, but it didn't show it was nothing about what was actually going to happen in the movie. It was literally just a moment in which he was stopping a bank robbery, I think, which didn't even have to be something that made its appearance in the movie itself. But it's just this cool thing to say, hey, Spider-Man's coming out. Similar thing with Hulk. The first trailer was just Bruce Banner, Eric Bana, standing in front of the mirror, and there's a voiceover. Then you have this shot. He looks up at the mirror, and then his eyes turn green, and I think it cuts to a shot from outside of the home, and then the wall starts getting hit, and the Hulk busts through the wall, and then it just cuts to the Hulk, and then it says the movie's coming out in 2003. An even more modern, recent example is with this. I think actually we would have seen this in the Thunderbolts. It was a trailer that preceded it. There was this teaser trailer, or maybe it was Sinners, but there's a teaser trailer for a movie where it was just a bunch of kids running out of the house late at night. Do you remember what I'm talking about? Yeah. And they were like, on October something, all of the children in this town ran away and they never came back. And it was all just these like preteens and little kids running through the streets.
Just dipping off into the darkness, and that was it. And I was just like, what the heck is this movie going to be about? That's like if you never show another trailer for that movie until the movie comes out, that's exactly how you should do it. Yeah, right? Like, you got my attention. Now just say like, hey, that movie's coming out in like 2 months. Don't do that for a movie that's coming out in like a year. Just be like right when the movie's about to come out. Like video games have this problem now, big time, where they'll make a teaser for something that don't come out for like 5 years, and you're just like, I'll either forget about it or you'll have passed the moment where it mattered. Like back in the day, you didn't even know a game came out until you went to like Toys R Us and it was already there. You're like, what the heck? Yeah, dude. So yeah, like the Taskmaster was a big, like I was like, okay, and then right up underneath that was Ghost, where like they used her in cool ways, but it's like, I know she got to have a good chunk of her backstory shown in Ant-Man 2, but who the heck I didn't rewatch Ant-Man 2 I didn't rewatch anything to get caught up on this. Yeah. So maybe that's on me, but I don't think it's on me. I shouldn't have had to do that. That should have been there should have been more information privy to her, especially considering you planned on continuing to use her. John Walker, I liked Wyatt Russell's portrayal of him in Falcon and Winter Soldier, where it made sense. The problem for me is that it just was the same portrayal here, instead of there being any like growth of the character. Like in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he was able to be this person who didn't recognize that the super soldier serum that he had taken was kind of affecting his already like kind of messed up psyche in a way that was making him more hyper violent. And here he just became dejected and despondent. And I'm not saying that they needed to go the comic book path with him, because the comic book John Walker is kind of like a racist piece of shit. But here, just making him like seemingly like a lovable like asshole also may not have been like the best way to go. Like effectively, all these people talked about being bad guys, but there was no real show of it. In reality, they all were like just steps away from still being good guys. So like in the comic books, the original Thunderbolts were a team created by Baron Zemo of all villains. And these villains were basically portraying superheroes. Like they weren't like, I'm Captain America, I'm Thor. Like they were just new. They all donned new costumes and became like new characters. And the whole thing was, let's infiltrate, let's make the world think that we're good, just to kind of show them that like these good guys aren't really all that good. But then people like they did good deeds, and people liked them. They applauded them. They were like, thank you. They thanked them. And a number of them was like, you know what, this villain thing, I wasn't getting thank yous when I was a villain. So like they turned and became good guys. Here it was just a bunch of people like cosplaying bad guys and telling us about all these bad things they did off screen that nobody saw for Valentina. And I guess they thought the killing of Taskmaster was the one way of showing like, oh, they some bad eggs. Captain America wouldn't shoot somebody in the face.
Yeah.
And again, it isn't that I didn't like this. Like, I really did like this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it wasn't even like I'm a far way away from a love it. For me, it was a very fun movie to watch. I laughed a whole bunch. I got emotional. I remember when everybody applauded them when they saved like the group of people and they pushed up the big block.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, yeah. And they were like, oh, okay, this feels good. This is great. This is what we want, right? And then that little girl showed up, and then Red Guardian looked down at her. He's like, yeah. And then she got shadow blotted. And I remember, I think I was like in the theater. I was like, oh my God. And I said that like out loud because I just was not expecting that.
No, that was you that said that?
Yeah,
I heard somebody say it. I felt it. Because I was so salty when that happened. I was like, whoa. You just didn't expect it.
And at that time, I thought he was actually killing people. So I was like, what? He just killed this little girl.
Yeah. Absolutely brutal.
So, well, admittedly, in terms of like themes and stuff like that, I loved how they did the Sentry. I loved the idea of his void feeding into like his doubt and the concept that he's just never good enough, and that because he's never good enough, the only person that he can rely on is himself, and his void is a loneliness that like eats away at him in a way that like, and I hate to get politically cultural, but it's like it's kind of representative of like the male loneliness epidemic, and how men are kind of really internalizing things so much to a point that they don't even really communicate amongst each other, and are finding it harder and harder to make friends that aren't like shouting matches on Twitter and things like this. And as a result, it's creating an anger, especially in like young males, that are leading to things like mass shootings and the like. And here you kind of essentially had a mass shooting in the form of an incredibly powerful person effectively removing people. And of course, honestly, they should have been dead. I think it would have made a bigger statement if he was killing, instead of it being he's sending them to the void as well, basically to make them face their void, the thing that would maybe eventually make them be the way that he is. But I liked when they got in there. That part made me feel. It made me think about Agatha All Along, and the way that it used magic as a means of like cinematography. And that whole like, here's Yelena having to deal with the one thing that I think she recognizes kind of made her the way that she is currently. And
her past, her trauma.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I do kind of wish that she had talked about, or at least recognized, was how maybe to some degree they should have changed with Kate Bishop. It seems like after the events of Hawkeye, the two just separated in a way that they just never came back around each other, which is kind of sad because the two, like, Florence and Haley had like a crazy chemistry in that show. And you'd think that they would have rewritten it in a way that was like, you know, these two probably would have continued being friends after the events of that show. Especially considering it seems like Yelena stays in New York, but neither here nor there. I did like that part, and I liked that they dealt with the enemy without like punches being thrown.
Yeah, and that being like the final resolution to it. Like, I threw more punches, or I threw harder punches, therefore I win, sort of thing. Which they literally go in the opposite direction, right? With, oh no, stop punching him. all of that punching that you're doing is actually making that stronger. And it led to this I love that the shot in that scene where Yelena is running towards him, and then it's not only Yelena though who comes to hold Bob, but it's also John Walker who comes to hold Bob, and it's Bucky who comes to hold Bob, and it's Red Guardian who comes to hold Bob, and it's all of these people that are kind of becoming like a surrogate family for Bob, like over the course of actually a very short amount of time when you think about it. It's important to remember like the people that we have that kind of help to pull us out of that hole. And I think Louis Pullman's performance was great, especially. I feel like I'm kind of jumping all over the place, but especially that scene where he's talking to Valentina after she made that comment about him being stronger than all of the Avengers, and it's clicking in his head, right? Where he's like, "Wait a minute, why am I even listening to you?" He said, "You literally just said that I'm stronger than all the Avengers, which includes at least one god."
I couldn't tell if at that point that was the Void talking or if that was like Sentry.
Truly, yeah.
But I did like that. I like that a lot. I mean, especially coming off of like that fight scene that had happened just before it, where effectively Marvel said we could do Superman. I'm not gonna say they did do Superman better, but they were basically like kind of like being like, this is what we would do if we had Superman, which is, I mean, is the Sentry itself, but like the whole concept of him just being like, I don't care what you guys are trying to do to me, none of you could ever even attempt to step to me. But also that group of people being like, we've fought so many different things before. I mean, Bucky's like, I fought Thanos, and yet I can't do anything about you.
That's true.
So
I fought a dude who literally destroyed half the universe, and I can't.
And even he didn't snatch my arm, punch me up into the sky, and catch me before I hit the ceiling.
And then knock him out with his own arm, which is like so salty. Imagine that happening to you. Somebody just taking your limb off and then knocking you out with it.
And that was him like being soft. Because he was like, those are my friends.
I'll just take his arm though, and I'll just knock his ass out. Yeah, it's just it was a different way to go about that ending. The third act, you know, the final climax, the climactic battle, which I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed that it wasn't just, well, how can I figure out how to throw more or stronger punches than the Void, which from everything I had been learning about the Sentry and the Void leading up to the release of Thunderbolts, I'm like, you can't. The stories that I was hearing and reading online, there was I think Variant Comics. I was on their channel, and I think another channel, I think his name is the Comic Explainer. I might be wrong on that.
Comics Explained.
Comics Explained, yeah. Dude, I was like, the Sentry is insanely powerful. Mm-hmm. And also, of course, a very complex story that I think it kind of reminds me of what you were saying about Shadowlands and Daredevil, of like, how do you scale down that story with like not using all of the street level people, because likely you wouldn't have, if you venture that route for season 2 or season 3, whichever, you're probably not going to bring in Wolverine. You're probably not going to bring in Spider-Man. And so here with Sentry, it's like, from what I understand of his origin story, you would have had to brought in the Fantastic Four. You would have had to bring in Doctor Strange, and because people
technically, I guess you'd also have to bring in Emma Frost.
Oh, that's right. Emma Frost was a part of it, wasn't? Yeah, dude, and Spider-Man as well, because everyone had forgotten that the Sentry even existed. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it would have been cool. Man, now when I think about it, what would it have been like if they very slowly put together the Sentry, but use all of those characters, but had people remembering in their own movies and sort of their journey and figuring out that the Sentry has always existed. I mean, I am cool with how they did his origin story here in the movies, because I understand that they probably, it'd be very resource intensive to try to mimic exactly what happened in the comics.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it would be crazy to even attempt it. I've given up I've mostly given up the hope of like closer to comic accuracy with the MCU, just because of like how they had to do things. Because, I mean, it would have been a totally different thing if they had access to X-Men, Spider-Man, and the Fantastic Four back in 2008. but they didn't. So they've done what they've done. They've done a good enough job. There are two things I gotta say about this movie that I wish were different.
Hey, jump
mostly
into it.
just, I thought they were building towards the Dark Avengers. And in a sense, they technically are, but they also really are not. And as such, it just continues my dislike of how they've handled the Civil War secret invasion, especially secret invasion, and like Dark Reign storylines that they've been trying to like utilize, but just like bare bones. And I don't ever really say this in movies, in Marvel movies, but in this one time I have to say it. What the Century was doing called for the Avengers or any other superhero to appear. And for no one to do that is insane, because it was New York City. It'd be one thing if this were happening in Boatesville, Florida. I don't know if Boatesville exists. I'm just saying
it does.
A place that exists.
Right, Andrew,
Florida.
Boatesville.
But this is New York City.
Yeah, this is Manhattan.
Manhattan, Marvel MCU Central. They're using the Avengers Tower as a focal point here.
I mean, I feel like that's kind of, even in the comics when you think about it, which actually in the comics, I guess, when events like this transpire, they do show up.
Yeah,
they do show up, but it's something about just doing anything in New York, though. There's so many heroes there. And maybe not just in New York City, but in New York in general, you have the X-Men. You have Daredevil, Spider-Man, Fantastic Four. Is an Iron Man technically based in New York? I guess maybe he
like jumps between the two coasts.
Okay.
But
there are a lot of people.
Like, especially considering that in the post-credit scene, they talk about Sam Wilson and that he's assembling Avengers. Now it's kind of weird because like I think I told you when we watched the movie that he's been asked in Captain America 4 to assemble Avengers for President Ross.
Right.
Now that post-credit scene in Thunderbolts takes place 14 months after the events of Thunderbolts. So I'm not sure if the events of Thunderbolts occur before the events of Captain America 4.
I was curious about the same thing. Yeah.
Which, if that's the case, then sure, you could say No, I wouldn't. I would say Sam Wilson should be there because he's currently been working for the president. So for him to not show up, or ain't no Wong, considering that at one point the post-credit scenes made it seem like Wong and people were assembling a group of Avengers.
Dude, Wong was just showing up everywhere.
Yeah,
I mean, he showed up in She-Hulk, right?
Yeah. So what's going on there? But you would think that somebody honestly, even if you weren't going to do like a whole group of people showing up, that would have been a perfect Spider-Man.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
There were times I was like, oh man, when that stuff started falling, I was like, oh, and then a big canopy of web shows up, and then they look up, and then Spider-Man just comes whipping by, and they're like, oh, damn.
Wouldn't that have been some shit though if he comes in and webs that up and saves people, and then he just gets voided?
Yeah. And then the events of his next movie could have been the big him coming out of that, and then going and there you go right there. But anyway, those were my two things. When they eventually did say oh, this is a Thunderbolts movie, I was like, sure. It kind of also is goofy that. So the Thunderbolts asterisks. They never want to call themselves the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts name comes from Yelena's, and I would also assume maybe Natasha's soccer team when the family were temporarily in the United States as spies. Would have been a perfect use of the name as a team of people that worked for, I don't know, President Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. But nope. We'll instead have Valentina De La Fontaine use this team at the very end and call them the New Avengers. And sure, they can be an Avengers team, whatever. But unless Doomsday involves Sam's team of Avengers facing off against this like U.S. state-backed team of the Avengers. Ain't no point in calling them the Avengers.
Mm-hmm. You know, how do you feel about the makeup of this team? Because I think leading into it, part of me was skeptical as to whether or not I would enjoy it purely based on the makeup of the team, because I felt that it was a little redundant. Because
it's 3 Captain Americas. So
Exactly.
I would say, like, I don't know who all is supposed to be in, like, Sam's team. I'm assuming it's Sam, Captain Marvel, maybe Photon, maybe Miss Marvel. She might be a part of, like, the Young Avengers. Possibly Spider-Man. Wong, I'm guessing, because Doctor Strange is off with, what's her name? And
the
incursions.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm assuming he's going to show up for the incursions part of it. So but he won't be like, maybe he'll be Avenger, maybe he won't. This team would trounce Yelena's Avengers because, again, there are 3 Captain Americas, a Black Widow, and Ghost, he can phase, but she's not powerful enough to, once she gets caught out of a phase, to do anything. And then you have Sentry, who will not do anything because he's 1, too powerful to be a movie character, and 2, is afraid to unleash the void.
Which, when you mentioned that, I kind of felt that was one of the reasons why that would be the case. Why that fight scene, that altercation between the Thunderbolts and Sentry came upon and ended as quickly as it did, because it's like, realistically, what can you do against him?
Yeah, nothing. That's why.
Absolutely.
Especially not them.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
It'd be a little bit different if it were like Doctor Strange against Sentry.
Is it bad that I got hyped when Bucky took off his coat? When everyone got wiped, when Sentry wiped the floor with every one of them, he literally threw somebody out of the window hanging 50 stories above the streets of Manhattan and then pulled them back in only to just toss them away. But I was excited. I knew he wasn't going to be able to do anything, but just the fact that he was angry and still going at it, I was excited. It kind of reminded me of
it's like when Captain America
walked up to Thanos. Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. Yeah. But I don't know, it was just kind of, it got me hyped. I felt kind of stupid because I knew he wasn't going to be able to do anything except for get his arm ripped off and knocked out with his own arm. But
that arm comes off too easy. He needs to do something.
It does.
About that.
It kind of reminds me of, like, actually, so I got this little hand steamer right here. Mm-hmm. And so to remove and put water in it, I just twist it and I pull. That's what it feels like. He would just twist his arm slightly off.
I don't even know if he twists it. It looks like he always just goes. Just like pops it off. I mean, he treats it like an accessory.
It's like taking out dentures. I mean, he
put it in a washing machine at one point.
Yeah, literally put it in
a dishwasher.
He put his arm in the dishwasher.
So,
what was that?
Which was really weird because it was like he got some marinara on it. It was like you could have just used
wash your
wash
hands, dude.
like take a rag, just like if I get some marinara on me, I'll go. Oh, just
take.
Let me take a whole shower because I got some marinara on my
off a piece of your skin. Just run it under the water and just tape it back on. Hope it heals.
I think he also and he gets caught so often without it because he's like what if the Dora Milaje just pop up? He's like, oh, I don't got the arm on me. So,
damn, man, I shouldn't have left it in the washing machine or the dishwasher. It's like shit.
But yeah, at the end, I did really enjoy it. I enjoyed this movie. The scene in credits, the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
It
tells you something about that movie, huh?
It does. And I didn't like that.
Right? Right?
This is one of those times where it's like, why would you do that?
Why would you do that? So I know we've already given a spoiler at the very beginning. You should have known. I'm not trying to be an asshole here. I love you guys. But you should have known.
No, we were going to
spoil some stuff. So the very last end credit. So this movie has 2 end credit scenes. One is more of a gag. It's kind of I shouldn't say exactly reminiscent of the Captain America
I forget what he said.
Yeah, I was like right there on the tip of my tongue, but then just receded into the dark recesses of my mind. But the Captain America scene, I'm sure you guys are familiar with from Spider-Man: Homecoming, when he's, giving you shit about staying to the end of the credits expecting to see something. Sometimes it doesn't pay off. So one of the scenes is like that. It is actually incredibly funny with David Harbour. But then the very end credit scene is when, actually what Dame just referred to, with they're saying that this takes place 14 months after the ending of Thunderbolts, in which Sam is now recruiting his own team of Avengers. And they get this feed that a spaceship is inbound towards Earth. And wouldn't you know, there's a giant 4 on the outside of that spaceship. And here's the thing, people. Obviously, Fantastic Four has not come out yet. But if you've seen the Fantastic Four trailer, you know that one of the main villains, if not the main villain, is Galactus. And what does Galactus do, people? He eats planets.
So he does. I've heard a theory about this.
Okay, what do you hear?
So the theory is that it isn't. Galactus is not the reason that they left, and that in fact Galactus and Silver Surfer actually come with them. The theory is that it's Doctor Doom. Doctor Doom enters their universe and causes an incursion, and that's why they have to leave.
So it's kind of like, because correct me if I'm wrong here, but did an incursion technically kill off the Ultimate Marvel Universe in the comics? Was it because of that?
So, okay. So in the comic books, in Secret Wars, the last 2 universes are Earth 616 and Earth is 1610, I believe is the the original Ultimate Universe.
Okay.
An incursion is occurring. So an incursion in the comic books is when a universe is being destroyed, and in the Marvel world, the axis of a universe is the Earth. So when the universe is dying, it essentially kind of like pushes out its Earth, and its Earth is typically the last thing left. And when that Earth comes into like a new universe and the two collide, that's an incursion.
Really? So it's not necessarily like an overlapping or a melding of universes.
No, in fact, if an incursion occurs, both universes are gone because they basically literally both Earths crash into each other.
So, okay, so let's say Earth 616 and Universe 616 is still intact. Mm-hmm. An incursion is beginning with 1610, the Ultimate Universe. Mm-hmm. By the time that Earth 616 sees Earth 1610, can you already assume that that universe is already done?
Dead, and the only thing left of it is the Earth of 1610.
But if that universe is dead, does that mean that everyone inhabiting that Earth is already dead?
No.
And then hollow Earth is coming?
Assume that the people on the Earth are still alive, but like, say if you were Uatu, you're dead. If you were the Guardians out in space, you're dead. If you were a Skrull, you're dead.
Wow. Okay. Oh, because Earth is the axis in which all... Okay.
But if you're the Avengers, you're still alive because you're on Earth.
Right.
And basically that was kind of what happened. Essentially, the Earths were trying... Each Earth was trying to stop the incursion from happening. But essentially an incursion can't really stop. They tried multiple times, it's effectively one of the Earths would have to actually be destroyed,
right,
in order for the incursion.
Which then ends up bringing up one of those. Oh my gosh, dude! I was just listening to some podcast and they were talking about this. I forget what the actual term is, but when they introduce the, oh my god, it's the train scenario where if you're on a runaway train and there's one person on the track.
Oh, the trolley problem.
The trolley problem.
Yeah,
dude, that was so. Thank you so much. But I'm sorry, there's 5 people on the track that'll die if you do nothing, but then you pull the lever, and then one person will die. Because I saw something it was YouTube, it might have been Variant or Comics Explained, where I guess the entirety of Earth 616 heroes thought that the Earth was ending. So you have this they're kind of having this last hurrah. From what I can tell, everyone's trying to come to terms with what's happening. But then the Earth doesn't end because it turns out that Namor had been working with Doctor Doom to try to kill everyone from that other planet. Right? Because that's like you were saying, is that they have to kill everyone there, and then once you destroy that other Earth, then they save.
Yeah, they save you save your Earth. So in not Civil War, in Secret Wars, effectively the incursion happens, but then because Doctor Doom has been really the machination of all of it, he utilizes the powers of Molecule Man to take bits and pieces from all of these Earths that have been destroyed to create a new Earth called Battleworld.
So, is that a deviation then? And I thought it was the powers of the Beyonder that he used to create Battleworld, or is that just a deviation from the Spider-Man animated series?
He uses technically both. What's essentially happening is Doctor Doom finds out a while before any of this happens that the Beyonders are effectively doing an experiment. And the experiment is if there's someone imbued kind of with like basically near our power, in this case the Molecule Man. That's why there's every universe has Molecule Man.
Right.
And we explode that Molecule Man. What will happen? If like near like omnipotent cosmic energy basically just explodes in a universe
simultaneously, right?
They were kind of doing it. They wanted to do it all. Yeah, they wanted to do it across the board, all together.
Yeah.
And Doctor Doom was like, that ain't happening. So him and his Molecule Man start to work with the other Molecule Man to then siphon all of the Beyonders' power away from them and put it into someone, which ends up becoming Doom at the very end, which is why it becomes God King Doom. He's got King Doom. He's got King Doom. Joker's got Emperor Joker. Okay.
Joker.
There's a story where Joker gets the powers of Mr. Mixius Pedalic and becomes God Emperor Joker. But we'll jump back to Marvel. Right. So he has basically the power of the Beyonders, which is also technically the power of the Molecule Man.
Yeah.
And creates Battleworld, one of his many times where he thought, like, if I am the ruler of everything, then everything should be okay.
Yeah.
But obviously that doesn't work out in the very end for him. He basically runs into the exact same problem he ran into in the original Secret Wars, which is, in the original Secret Wars, the 84 one, he gets the power of the Beyonder. Because at that time, there was only one Beyonder. Then it turned out that the Beyonder from there was actually like a baby Beyonder, and that there were multiple Beyonders, and they were all super fucking powerful.
He still powers from a baby?
But he's like a grown man looking. Anyway.
Oh, it's a grown man baby.
Yeah, he's a grown man baby.
Sweet.
He loses to Reed Richards, basically, and Reed, Nate Richards, not Nate Richards, Reed, his son, I don't think his daughter is a part of it, but also the Molecule Man, bring everything back together. If we're looking at the MCU's incursions just seem to kind of be based off of what we've seen, the overlapping of two universes. So that's probably what Doom is doing in a bid to try to take over everything. We'll see, though.
So that's ultimately the theory that people have of what's happening.
It's basically that he's set off an incursion that's taking over there, so they need to get out of there before everything gets destroyed. Where
does the need to save Galactus and the Silver Surfer come into play, though?
I think they also just try to get out of there and hitch onto the Fantastic Four getting out of there. It would be probably the only real way that you get them into the MCU's 616 because of the fact that they don't seem to already exist. Otherwise, like, we've been in space enough in Earthwood 616 for Galactus to be a thing.
Do you think they'll try to retcon anything with that? Like, having introduced this in that end credit scene, like there was that part in the first Captain America: The First Avengers where they're at that science expo And there's actually a call to the Human Torch, but not the Johnny Storm Human Torch, but when
it was
an
John
android.
Hammond.
So do you think that there's any potential that there was some version of a Fantastic Four, some sort of like Silver Age, Golden Age, whichever age it was, and that they'll be like, oh, hey, well, back in the 40s, around the same time as like Captain America, there was a Fantastic Four family, but Human Torch was a robot, and
Oh, well, they like try to make up a 616.
yeah, try to
probably not. I think this will be a situation where they didn't exist in one universe and they exist in another. Like, it seems in their universe there are no other heroes,
right.
So like they're the first of their kind. So that would make sense that they would be basically able to be put in without having an equivalent. But I don't know as well because like. I get fat. I kind of all right, because I want to talk a bit more about this, but we're not going to. So, yep, Thunderbolts, great movie. Any last thoughts on the movie itself?
Just that it was, I don't know. I want to say that it exceeded my expectations, but to be honest with you, I don't really know what my expectations were. I think that, again, I was a little hesitant just because there were so many super soldiers. It just kind of felt redundant. With other iterations of these superhero teams, there's obviously enough variations in their powers to make them feel very distinct. But even with that, even with there being 3 super soldiers, the rebirth of a Black Widow, which I think I may prefer Yelena over like Natasha.
Well, Yelena's funner than Natasha.
She's very fun. They were just concerned about like, wow, man, is this really going to be enjoyable to watch? Because there's just not enough distinction. There's no Hulk, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Lightning, super strength, tech genius, and just a rage monster, you know? So how would this fare? And I really enjoyed it. I was really enjoyed it. I was cheesing most of the time. I had the biggest smile on my face and just being excited, and it felt like it knew when to get serious, when it needed to just kind of hunker down, and it knew when to be a little bit lighter. For the most part, I wouldn't say it was like 100% perfect on that, but it was exciting. It was exciting to get into the theaters again to see a Marvel movie. I don't think I've seen a Marvel movie in theaters since Ant-Man 3. I think was the last one a couple years ago for me. Oh, or sorry, Deadpool and Wolverine. I guess I totally forgot that they're now part of. Yeah.
I thought we just recently kind of saw one. Yeah. Really good movie. I just wanted to take this last little bit just to ask you guys if what you guys thought about Thunderbolts. I do hope you saw it before you watched this because we spoiled everything, and it's one of the few times we didn't say spoilers at the very beginning of it like we usually do. Let us know what you thought. Please like if you liked it. If you didn't like it, hit that thumbs down as well. Let us know why you didn't like it or why you did like it. Subscribe. That way you'll get some notification that lets you know that we just put out a new episode every single time it happens. And share. If you like listening to us and you like what we're talking about, you think your friends might as well, let them know. Let your brother know. Let your family know.
Let your mom know. Let your uncle know. If you got a parakeet, if you got like a pet pigeon, I would put a note. I would write a little on a piece of parchment and put it on his ankle and then fly him away. And just, you don't even tell him to go anywhere specific. Just say, go to the next town over and just drop it off and tell that person as well. You might make a friend.
I don't think parakeets do that. I think you more need like a pigeon to be.
Well, that's why I said parakeet at first, and then I switched it to pigeon because I realized a pigeon might be better. So yeah, pigeon man. Talk to pigeons.
Yeah, definitely like, share, subscribe,
please.
All that, please.
Yeah, and like again, sorry, like Damon said, let us know what you think in the comments. We would love to have conversations with y'all to, to see what you guys thought about the movie and sort of jibber jabber back and forth and have a good old time. Mm-hmm. Appreciate you guys listening.
This is Damon.
And this is Farron.
This has been Panharmonicon Presents a podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Panharmonicon presents a podcast.